I am so excited for yet another epic conversation on the Life at Full Blast podcast. I'm super excited to invite a new friend here to the show. Her name is Alara, and she calls herself the Oracle of Wealth. And so I'm excited to have this conversation because, number one, I think wealth is something that's misunderstood and misconstrued, especially in the coaching industry. And so I can't wait to pick your brain and dive right into this conversation. Welcome to the show.
Yay, Cindy. I'm excited to have you pick my brain.
I love it. Okay, so you posted something on your Facebook profile. I went and cruised around to check you out. That's what we do, right? We stalk people on Facebook. So I read on your cover graphic, it says, wealth is as effortless as breathing. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes. So wealth is resource, and our very fundamental resource is our breath.
Mm-hmm.
It's there the minute we are born, all the way to the very last minute we die. But we don't think about it because it flows in and out of our bodies, whether we're really paying attention to it or not.
Yes.
And this is the truth of our state of being with wealth. We are truly inexhaustible in our ability to create and flow wealth through our being. And just like the breath, we have the inhalation, which is the receiving, the earning, the making, the creating. You have the exhalation, which is the giving, the spending, and you have the pause between the breaths of the holding, the saving. And the quality of that interaction, because the art of wealth is the exchange. So the exchange of your breath, how do you receive? Most people are breathing up into their chests. They're breathing shallowly, they're breathing shallow. Let's put it that way.
I got that.
And they don't even pay attention to their breath. And both the inhale and the exhale are shallow. And a lot of people actually aren't connected to the pause really at all. They're just moving, inhale, exhale. So the quality through which we breathe and through which we recognize that is our primary resource, and we can engage with it. And actually, I live my life with my breath at the forefront of my life. My breath leads my life. And I learned this through yoga. I was taught yoga by a dear friend back in 2001. It was just her and me. She taught me how to breathe properly in yoga. And the yoga I was doing, we do Ujjayi breath, which is a very audible breath. And she taught me, and then she gave me a book, and I just dived right into it. And without knowing, because I really didn't know, Cindy, what was going on, I learned that my breath was what was there to take me into the asanas. My breath was there to move my body. It wasn't about moving my body and breathing. It was inhale, expand, open, exhale, fold. Inhale, shift, exhale, fold. And I had this beautiful, organic, I had no idea. I thought this was just how it was, relationship between my breath and how it could open up my body. It could create spaciousness in my body. It could fold my body. It could energize me. It could relax me.
Yeah.
And, I came back to the States because I was living abroad, and I went to a yoga studio for the first time after, practicing for like 2 years by myself. And I was astonished, to say the least, at their philosophies. Not that any of it is all wrong or anything, but just that particular one that I walked into and the teachings that I had come through. So yes, the breath is the way that we can receive, the way that we can give consciously, heart-centered, with quality, because the quality of that exchange really equates to our wealth.
I love that so much. And, as you were talking, I immediately felt myself sit up straighter and start breathing more deeply. So thank you.
I saw you do that. I was like, yes.
And the other thing that really stands out to me is the pause. I don't think we think about the pause ever. We're just going about our day. So I love that. I've heard the reference of the inhale and the exhale before, but nobody's ever said the pause to me before. So I love that. I love that. So I'm curious if you've always experienced this breath work and wealth exchange, or if you had struggles with wealth in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the breath down. I did not connect that to wealth. And even though I was practicing yoga at that time, I didn't recognize that the breath was really meant to be in all aspects of my life. I would go onto my yoga mat, breathe really beautifully, and then go about my day.
Yeah.
And so in 2021, I was living the dream. My business was doing very, very well. You know, after COVID and a lot of people were struggling, my business was flourishing. I was making six figures. I had six figures in the bank. I was doing very well. And I still had this little voice in my head that just said, I just need a little bit more money.
Yeah, it's not enough.
It's not, if I just get a little bit more, then I'll feel safe. Then I can relax. Then I can just really be.
Right.
And I was spiritual. I was super tapped in. And I was in denial of how I truly felt with money because I had it. So I could be in denial with it, couldn't I?
Right? Yeah.
And what ended up happening is all of my money was stolen.
Oh my gosh. Panic.
Yes. So in this energy of attempting to get more, I was in a dysregulated state of my nervous system. I was not in my presence, and I was taking actions that were in fear and insecurity. And I found myself in a scam, which before that, I would have said, oh, I can spot scams a million miles away.
Right.
This was through a friend mentor. So it was through a person that supposedly was very, highly regarded. And yeah, he stole all my money. And I, remember it very clearly. I was sitting there on my computer and I watched my six figures go to zero in a split second. I collapsed to the floor.
Yep.
I felt shame. I felt despair. I felt fear. And I breathed into my body and moved all of that fear out initially. And this is the funny part, because I've always been able to create my reality. Even when I was a kid, people would say to me, like, how do you do it? You always just create what you want. And so I was like, you know what? This is okay. I'm just going to get it all back. I'm just going to create it all back.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened, Cindy.
Because you had a lesson to learn.
And I had not learned that lesson. And I thought I could just bypass it again, that I'd been bypassing it for years, like literally all my life.
Yeah.
And, you went about using all my modalities to create what I want, quantum physics, everything that works for me. But I hadn't learned the lesson. And so instead of creating it all back, I got to experience another wonderful loss as my six-figure business collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
And for the first time in my life, I went into debt.
Yeah.
So that's when I paused.
Yeah. Okay, I'm listening now. I'm listening
now. I'm pausing. And I had to face the deep insecurity I had around money.
Yeah. So what was that like, going through that and actually facing it? Because, I think a lot of us are really good at bypassing because we're doing okay. Everything's just fine. I'm fine. Fucked up, irrational, neurotic, and emotional. What does it look like to actually go in and stop bypassing?
Yeah. So when I started asking questions instead of being arrogant and presuming that I had the answers. Higher self came to me and said, why don't you ask money how you show up with money in the relationship?
Mm-hmm.
So I tapped into the consciousness of money and I said, Money, how do I show up in our relationship? And money said, you don't show up.
Mm.
You show up when you want something. You kind of thank me here and there, but largely you don't really appreciate me.
Right.
You definitely don't value me. And there was a long list. I mean, that's what I remember. So it was a hard pill to swallow, but I could see how it was very true. Money always seemed so kind of weird to me. It was like these numbers, and I honestly just didn't feel connected to it. So I didn't value it. It was like money came in, it went out. Like, I don't know. It's, or is that a lot of money? Is that not very much money? It didn't even ever feel anything to me. I had no connection to it.
Right. So what does that look like on the other side now that you are connected to it?
Well, I am speaking to money.
Actually paying attention.
Paying attention, listening.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really to me about where am I in this moment right now? Because as you said, nobody talks about the pause.
Yeah.
The pause, the stillness, the presence, the moment between thoughts, the spaciousness between one project to the next is often just bulldozed right through. We inhale, we exhale, we inhale, we exhale, we inhale, we exhale. What pause? We're like hyperventilating ourselves, right?
Second.
I'm fine.
No wonder we're running around like chickens with our heads cut.
And learning how to be in that pause. And, of course, this requires a nervous system that's regulated.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of my process, was learning how to regulate my nervous system, how to use my breath to regulate my nervous system, and how to use my breath to come into my body, how to use my breath to connect into my heart and come into heart coherence, which when we're in a heart coherence, this is scientifically proven by Heart Math Institute. We have higher creativity, higher cognitive function. We have self-regulation, stabilized emotions. We are functioning at a higher level of ourselves. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? You're in synergy with yourself. Like your brain and your heart brain are working as one, not that tug of war. Remember the saying, like the heart and the brain are playing tug of war? Like that doesn't have to be that way. So learning how to use my breath to be in that space. And, what I found is the pause is where all of the deliciousness is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I practice that in my breath work, the inhale, the exhale, the pause, and just sinking into that stillness and having the body actually relax. Because the first thing the body does is go pause, no, inhale, oh, don't stop. So, feeling safe in that pause. And the quality that then comes into my life, right? The quality of my presence, which is where our power is. The quality of, okay, I am going to receive right now. Money's coming in. Somebody's giving me a compliment. Somebody is giving me their attention. Yeah. I'm going to receive, like, with every single cell of my being. I'm going to give the reception everything that I have. Mm-hmm. And then the exhale, right? When I spend my money, really being clear on, do I want this?
Yeah. Why am I even spending this?
Is this important? Is this valuable to me? Mm-hmm. And even in things like bills or things that we don't want to necessarily buy, I am giving that my love. I am giving that my gratitude. I am all in on that exhale. Yeah. And it's incredible when you are in a state of quality, right? When you bring that quality into that art of exchange, wealth shows up for you effortless.
I love that. I love that you brought up the Heart Math Institute. I remember I did a coherence study with them 2 or 3, actually probably more like 5 years ago now. I had the little thing that you attached to your ear and did the whole coherence testing. It was really interesting to understand and to see the difference that it makes in your life. So yes, there's science behind it and I can vouch for it. It works. I love that. So, we often equate the word wealth to money. I think that's pretty common. A lot of people think, well, you're wealthy, so you must be financially rich. What does wealth mean to you?
Mm, such a great question. Wealth to me means that we're well resourced. And, being well resourced is really, what do you need in the moment?
Mhm.
I have a client who's a multimillionaire. And guess what? He doesn't feel free. He feels like he has lots of money.
Mhm.
Does he feel wealthy? In some ways, yes. But he gets
Mhm.
woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning with anxiety.
Right. That's not free.
Anxiety, yeah, anxiety like riddles his life.
Mhm.
So, in that aspect, you know, that's what he desires right now is that peace.
Mhm.
And that's where the understanding of, money doesn't bring us that freedom. I mean, I love the statement of financial freedom, right? Because I mean, I understand what it's teaching,
Yeah.
but true freedom has nothing to do with money, right? It's
Mhm.
being able to be in the state of being and create what you desire. So, with working with him, and his ability to start to let go of anxiety and come into peace, he is now experiencing wealth in
Mhm.
life because that's coming into everything. It's increasing his relationships with his family.
Yeah.
It's allowing him to show up better because he's not losing nights of sleep and he's drinking
Mhm.
less and not going to sleep numbed out from alcohol because he needs to get to sleep and he wants to override the anxiety, right? So his ability to show up in all of those spaces in his absolute best. So for him, that's his definition of wealth.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, there's the whole statement that money doesn't buy happiness, and there's a lot of money coaches out there who say, well, but it does because it gives you choice. But you see a lot of people who have a lot of money who struggle with anxiety or their relationships are falling apart. They're drinking themselves to sleep every night. And then you see people who have no money who are
Yeah.
super happy, right? Is there a balance where you can have it all?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
Uh, yes, because when we create that inside of ourselves, that's what we create externally. So, my life, I have recreated my six-figure business. I have recreated my wealth, but it is in a very different energy.
Yeah.
I no longer am in that. I need to get more. Where's my next client coming from? I just need to make,
Mhm.
make this sale. I have this absolute effortlessness because I have a deep trust. It's going to come in.
Yeah.
All of my needs are met, and they always are plus, right? It's not just my fundamental needs, it's my desires.
Mhm.
And I really believe that this is the new era of wealth, is that we are going to learn how to create that in ourself first as a state of being, then create it externally. That's where that effortlessness really comes from.
I love that.
And it's irrelevant of what happens with the stock markets. It's
Right?
irrelevant of what happens in political. I don't get scared by anything that's going on because I know that I can create what I need.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So if somebody were listening to this episode and super curious to know how you go about your work with your coaching and your practices, how can somebody find you and how do you work with clients?
Absolutely. So they can go to my website, alarasage.com. I'm also on most social medias, Alara Sage. And, it's really for me about restructuring through the breath, restructuring the body. And I bring in both quantum mechanics, I bring in science, I bring in physiology with ancient wisdom. And it's really, I do both workshops, I do, low ticket things. People can just kind of come and get a little taster with profound transformation. Let's just put it that way.
I love that.
All
Yes.
of my work is very experiential. We're doing the work inside of the experience. And then I have, group programs and one-on-ones, of course.
I love it. I love it. So there's multiple opportunities to come into your world. I love that.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this because it's one of my favorite topics. I want to thank you for being on the show today. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and your energy. I so appreciate it. And for those listeners out there who may be thinking, well, the stock market's doing the thing, the government's doing its thing, and maybe they are feeling that fear, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who wants to experience wealth but doesn't quite know how to get there?
Start first with your relationship to money. Sit down,
Mm.
ask yourself, how do you receive? How do you spend? And how do you hold? How do you save, invest? And just be really honest with yourself. There'll be some awarenesses just in that simple exercise.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cindy.